Well, talking about, my title's Inside Out. It's kind of about prayer and about how we use prayer to grow new things in our lives, grow new selves, take another step forward in our becoming process. So I was trying to think of the jokes I have about prayer. I told them all to you. I know you know them all. The only one I thought of right offhand was this one. It's a kind of a foxhole prayer, which is a prayer under emergency. You know, a prayer and it was set in a battle time. There's a group of soldiers, and they're about to go into battle, and it's very perilous. And one of them says to the others, "I think we should pray. I think we should pray. Does anyone know how to pray? Anybody get us started in this? Anyone know how to pray?" Nobody says anything. Finally, one guy says, "Well, you know, I grew up right next to a Catholic church. I might be able to put something together." So the others say, "Okay, fine. All right, let us pray then. Let's bow our heads." And the young man starts out, "All right, dear God, under the B, 51. Under the N, 11. You do a lot of bingos. A little stale. But it leads in pretty well to the idea of how we use prayer, how effectively we use prayer to move forward in our lives, to realize more of our potential, to realize more of God's abundance in our lives. And one of the things I've always loved about unity and New Thought spirituality is that it provides us with some pretty concrete and practical tools for doing that kind of prayer work. It's not vague, and it's not, I don't know, let's just hope. It used to bother me in the movies I grew up on. There would always be a point in a movie where they'd say, "All we can do now is pray." Isn't that a bothersome expression? I've always hated that. It's like it's the last resort, it's really not effective at all, but it's all that's left, so let's do it. That's not what I grew up in. In unity, no, this is a powerful thing to do. Prayer is a very powerful thing to do because we are shifting our minds and hearts in a new direction. It's work we're doing on the inside that will then manifest outwardly. But it happens from the inside out. From the inside out, always. Some of the New Thought writers that we have in our library talk about that in different ways. One of the most common phrases for that, they call it the law of correspondence. There must be a correspondence between the inside and the outside. We start doing our realization work on the inside, and then it takes shape outwardly. And that's not always what we do. Very often, we try to fix things outwardly. And then we think, well, then we'll feel and we'll be in a different place inwardly. Geographical cure, they call that sometimes. Like if I move somewhere, I'll be happier, I'll be more fulfilled. If I live on the West Coast or something like that, or if I just had more money, I'd feel better. I'd have a richer life, a more abundant life, a happier, more peaceful life. Or if I just, had a spouse, a partner in my life, or if I just got rid of a partner in my life, or whatever it might be, something external that will somehow cause the inner to change. Never works that way, though. In growing new things, invention, everything always starts on the inside and moves out. I used to have a book around the house. It was like a Reader's Digest book about inventions, the history of inventions, all kinds of inventions, like copy machines or X-rays or any kind of new technology. And the history of invention is always from the idea to the manifestation. It always starts with somebody gets an idea. Wouldn't it be great if we could do this? And they begin to imagine it and think about it and plan it and do drawings or write about it or whatever, and it takes more and more shape until it becomes a thing outwardly. And it's the same with our prayer life. We kind of grow ourselves in that same inside-out way, little by little. We don't do it all in a flash, but little by little, over the course of our lives. It made me think because Joe and I went to this insect workshop a couple weeks ago. I've already told you a lot about that insect workshop. It was called Nature's Choir. It was about hearing and learning to distinguish the songs of all the singing insects around us, which the course is going on right now big time. So have your windows open. Crickets, katydids, cicadas by day. And one of the things I learned about them, which I guess I've known somewhat throughout the insect world, they do a process of molting, right? The katydids go through several molts, throwing off their exoskeleton, and then they grow new capacities. With katydids, it's only after the last molt that they grow into their wings. And they have the capacity, not all katydids, but many of them, to fly. And they all grow wings after that last molt. But they go through several stages in that growth process. And I thought, well, we kind of do that too. You know, in a way, I kind of resonate with that idea of maybe the last molt is maybe when we reach the end of this journey, our life journey, and we grow our wings to take off to the next plane. That's the final molt on this planet life we're sharing. But I think we do molts throughout our life, don't we? And at each stage, there's a casting off of some old stuff and a gaining of some new insight, some new capacities, coming into some new gifts. Just like with the insects, except that it's sort of happening in consciousness. It's happening in consciousness. We get new ideas about something we want to be more of, something we want to experience more of, a way we want to be that represents a step ahead for us. Maybe we want to be more peaceful. Maybe we want to be more steady in the midst of confusion. Whatever it might be. Maybe we want to be more creative. We got creative energy flowing through us we just really feel the need to use. Whatever it is, that's the nudge inside, like the insect being nudged to cast off that old exoskeleton and move forward. We get those nudges too. And our role is to kind of pay attention to those divine nudges and let them guide us and be willing to believe and step forward. There's some new ideas in here that I'm going to take seriously. I'm going to explore them. I'm going to reflect on them. I'm going to imagine. I'm going to vision. Jesus taught very strongly that our belief in it is very important. He said, so I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, whatever you want to become or grow into, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. That's from Mark 11:24. Believe that you have received it. Now that's an interesting thing to teach, isn't it? To me, that means it starts from the inside and goes out. Start with really getting into that desire. Really believe in it, imagine it, reflect on it. Get yourself to the point where you really are aware, this is already mine. I'm so there in my head, in my heart. I'm already there. I believe it. And then it begins to take shape more and more outwardly. I believe it does work that way. And sometimes it starts with just the littlest idea. But if we let it take root in our consciousness, we begin to work with it, it can have amazing results. I know it's been true in my life. I don't think anything began to change in my life until I began to really believe that I was already in touch with the source of all my needs. It was already there. And I just needed to dwell on that and believe in that and reflect on that and take that more and more to heart. And then it begins to take shape outwardly. The law of correspondence, from the inside to the outside. Ernest Holmes, wonderful New Thought teacher and writer, founder of Center for Spiritual Living, he talked about that as building an inner equivalent. There should be an equivalency. It's a very similar word to correspondence. There should be an equivalency between inside and outside. Get yourself to the place where you're feeling, experiencing, getting into the new state of being. And as you do this, the outer forms fitting for such an inner state will manifest. Gradually, organically, inevitably. Kind of like molting, molt by molt. We cast off old things and we take on new capacities. And it's really been going on in all our lives, progressively, over the years, a little at a time. I was thinking of examples of that, people I've known, and I couldn't think of any better example than Eddie, our musical friend, Eddie Watkins Jr., who's visited this church before. He's a powerhouse bass player, and he plays piano, and he's a powerhouse vocalist. He's a very, very talented guy. And he's had a heck of a molting adventure behind him, from one life to another, that really kind of makes how it looks very apparent. You know, in our own lives, sometimes it's hard to track, but when I think back on the molts I've gone through, I hardly remember myself at 16. Do you remember who you were at 16? What your values were, your priorities, how you thought about things? You can look at pictures, but it's really almost like another life. Wouldn't you agree? That's how it is to me. Or 22, or 38, or whatever it might be. As you look back, we've definitely gone through molts all along the way as we've grown into new capacities and left some things behind that weren't serving us and realizing more and more of our potential. Eddie Watkins Jr. Grew up in Detroit in the midst of the Motown sound, and that was very influenced by that. That became part of who he was. He had piano lessons as a little boy that his grandmother gave him, but it was the bass that he fell in love with as a teenager when he heard it for the first time at some Motown review going on in the neighborhood, and he had to have one. He was like 15, and I got that bass, and immediately began just seeing himself as a bass player, playing it in his room, carrying it to school with him every day. I really like that part of the story. He carried it to school with him every day before he could play it. Just love that. He was so in that new state of mind, I'm a bass player. He was cool. He was a bass player, and he was carrying the bass, and he was there. Believe that you have received it. This is Jesus' words in action. He was already there in his mind and heart, and it outpictured rapidly. It was only probably 5 or 6 years later. He had a job doing bass backup for the Temptations and touring. An incredible outpicturing from the inside to the outside. He did his part. He practiced, he played, he imagined, he visioned, he saw himself in this new way. Other things must have dropped to the side as he was coming into this new identity. He became very successul. He followed that with being a Motown session player, recording on a whole lot of other Motown musicians' recordings. He wound up he was doing that in LA, and then he was in Vegas leading a big band, Big Daddy's Big Band or something like that, doing all kinds of things, very successful. And then some things came up in those years that required a molt, some significant molting, alcoholism. He began to realize he was having a problem with that. He needed to get into recovery. His diet, his eating, he'd become very, very heavy. He was like 350 pounds. His health was in jeopardy. He was on heart medication, blood pressure medication, and he began to get nudges. You get those nudges. You can't keep eating this way. This isn't working. You have to get into recovery. You've got to take that seriously. You've got to pray and build your spiritual life so you can stay on that sober path. He began to eat very differently. He decided he was guided, how God provides things for us. He stumbled on a film about juicing that really changed his ideas about how to eat and how he really needed to shift the balance toward plants, toward vegetables. And he went on much more of a plant-based diet, and the pounds just came off gradually. And then after a while, the medications came off. The meditations were on, the medications were off. And his doctors now are telling him, you keep doing whatever you're doing, keep doing it. He's at a good, healthy weight. He's not dealing with addiction issues anymore. He's staying on his sober path. He eats well every day. His music shifted throughout this whole process too. The kind of music he did began to shift more towards spiritual music about the power of God flowing through our lives. It's like God songs with a Motown groove. Not the kind of thing you find every day. It's fantastic. We've enjoyed it in this church, haven't we? Amazing. He didn't plan all those things, but that was the outpicturing as he began to follow the nudges inside. Some molting required here. There's some stuff you got to cast off. This way of eating, this way of drinking, this way of living. And the music changed. And the venues where he performed changed. They weren't bars and nightclubs anymore. They were churches and centers for spiritual living. He's a music director at a Unity Church in Florida now, in Ocala, Florida, where the minister serving there used to live in Columbus, Yvonne McAndrew. She was married to Patrick McAndrew, who was the minister at Unity on Mays, and she's the minister down there at his church. So it's just kind of, the story is all about the amazing ways it manifests from the inside out when we're following those nudges progressively through our lives to make some changes that are going to lead us toward greater good, greater abundance, greater peace, greater freedom. And that's happening in all our lives, all the time. What kind of, are there any tips on how to work this process? I think there are. These are things that occur to me. I bet you would have some as well, on how to build this inner equivalent, how to work with this law of correspondence. First of all, this is one I've learned over the years, leave the details to God. I think we need to leave the details to God. Sometimes we get a little over-controlling and think we have to tell God exactly what to do, what specific partner we desire, what specific job, what specific income level, specifically where we want to live, what house, and so on, which cuts off all other possible avenues because we're not receptive to them. We're not listening for them, we're not aware of them, we're so focused on, I want this job at this company, and this partner, and this house. No, we need to keep our focus on just following the guidance as it comes, staying wide open to all the possibilities and opportunities that are going to come our way in bringing us toward greater abundance, greater joy, greater freedom. We're not responsible for all the details. Thank God. Let's join me in that affirmation. Thank God. I don't want to have to plan all of the details of my life and every opportunity that's going to come my way or not going to come my way. There have been too many times in my life I was grateful for a prayer that didn't get answered. Grateful for a prayer that didn't get answered. And they teach us, I better leave the details to God, because I was really, really sure that was what I needed and wanted, and it turned out, wow, thank God that didn't come through. We need to leave that to God, those details. Eddie had no idea exactly how things were going to play out as he followed the intuition as it was coming. He just followed it and stayed alert for more guidance, and we led step by step as we trust, as we believe. So leave the details to God. Second one, be alert for models and mentors. I think that's a strong one. We are really in this together and meant to be helping and encouraging and supporting one another. That's what churches are for. But that's what the whole human community should be for, is that we can help one another with our own discoveries, and we can help pass them on to others so they can make discoveries and move ahead. It's kind of primary daily research we do, all of us. And God is behind it all, the hand of God. Eddie stumbling upon that film about juicing, or running into his friend Karen Drucker at a music conference once, and her being concerned about his weight, a little guidance coming in because of his health. We get mentors and models every day, and I've benefited so much from so many in my life. I know probably all of us in this room, we could compile quite a list of models and mentors that have blessed us with nudges of a new direction or a new possibility for our lives. A lot of mine have been ministerial, no surprise, I guess, but I was remembering, for instance, Reverend Janet Manning. How many of you remember her from Unity of Columbus? That goes back a number of years, but I learned a lot from her about the use of an affirmation in a time when that's not where you are at all, and the powerfulness of that. Janet Manning has a song we still do once in a while called I Am Free, I Am Unlimited. And she wrote it at a time she was not feeling at all free and unlimited. She was broke and struggling. But she wanted to claim something else, and she was starting that work on the inside. Started on the inside, and then it moves outward. So she wrote a song, I am free, I am unlimited, there are no chains that bind me. A song like that is empowering. And she taught me something about the usefulness of affirmations in a time of challenge. Don't wait till things are good. In the very midst of the challenge, you can affirm power. You can affirm joy and freedom, because that's how you start to do that inside work, and then it begins to manifest outwardly. When I was a teenager, I remember I never understood that. My mother would be ill with a cold or something like that, and she'd go, I'm filled with divine wholeness. And I'd think, yeah, right. And I thought it was like lying, not being truthful. I didn't get it. Reverend Janet Manning helped me understand that more deeply. It's an empowering thing to do, to shift your consciousness in a new direction that's going to manifest outwardly. That's powerful prayer work to do. That's building that inner equivalent, what you want on the inside so that it'll manifest on the outset. We all get these kind of models. Who are your mentors and models in your life? Who are they now? Who do you look to that represents, they represent a way of living that appeals to you? Some new aspect of how to live that resonates with you, that maybe you want to cultivate. Maybe you want to build a little bit more of that. Could be a gift for patience or persistence in the midst of a challenge, or sometimes just a glimpse can be enough of something you see in someone else's life and you think, I want that. I want that. I remember a friend of mine telling me once, a young man telling me he had learned from looking at somebody else that you could control your temper. It wasn't something he'd learned growing up. People were always flying off the handle and yelling. And he learned from a friend's family that you could stop that process, that you could develop a capacity to, even when terribly frustrated, to shift it and not go there. You could manage your temper. He'd never seen that before. And that glimpse was powerful. It shifted him inside. And it began to make changes outside. I think it's wonderful that we are there for each other in that way. As we, God-guided process, as we get nudges within and we begin to cultivate some higher wisdom or some greater strength or patience, and then we model that for others, and then they get inspired. Oh, you can live that way. I didn't know that. I can come up a little higher in that, or I can cast off this old stuff that isn't working for me anymore. See, it's that molting thing. We cast some stuff off, and we gather some new capacities, and we start seeing ourselves in that way. New state of mind. I'm a bass player now. I'm in a new place. I'm a musician. I'm whatever it is. We start to see ourselves in this new way, and it always comes out then. It always manifests outwardly. So we leave the details to God. We're alert for models and mentors, and we take them seriously. We observe, we witness, we learn from one another. Third one I have is quicken your sense of wonder. Ernest Holmes, in talking about this building this inner equivalent, he said, for people who are focusing too much on limitation, like I'm not there yet, I don't have enough, he said, dwell on magnitude. Dwell on magnitude. It's a surefire fix for when we're stuck with too heavy a sense of limitation. Get our minds up out of there. Look at mountains, look at oceans, listen to nature's choir at night and the amazing chorus going on all around us. Go stargazing. Whatever it is that gets your kind of mind up on the awesomeness of creation, because that'll expand our sense of possibilities. We'll begin to expect more is possible and be anticipating more for ourselves. Quicken your sense of wonder. And the last one, of course, is commune with God. Commune with God in any way you can, anytime you can, in any spaces or moments of your day that you can. Find moments to pray, to affirm the highest good you want to affirm right now, to remember above all that you are God-connected, that you are a gift, that God indwells you and you are deeply connected to the God of your being, and that God of your being is guiding you to realize all that's possible for you to become, to realize all your potential, all your gifts, and share them generously with all the rest of them, because we need everybody's gifts. Would you agree? We need everybody's gifts. So we let ourselves be inspired by creation. We work inside in our minds. It's really joyful work to imagine our good, to reflect on what it would be like to live this way, to bring in new ideas about how we want to realize ourselves more fully, all guided by God in us. We let God guide us, and we're eager to follow those nudges from within as they come, as we continue our molting process, molt by molt. I experience God within and blessings without. That's my affirmation for the day. If you'd like to join me in it, I'll say it again. I experience God within and blessings without. Together? I experience God within and blessings without. Let's take that into prayer for a moment. Affirm that truth within. Moment by moment, day by day, creative process unfolding in us. We realize, we remember our oneness with God, and we are alert for God's word within us, God's nudge of guidance. Steps toward greater freedom, greater abundance, deeper, steadier peace, unfailing, unconditional love that's ours. We are one with God. All things are possible. Thank you, God, for your living presence with us. We know that all is well. So it is. Amen.